You don't know what somebody's going through until you go through it. And I think we're all seeing a lot of that situation right now.
This is The Fit Mess with Zach and Jeremy.
Well, from our basements in Seattle and New York, respectively, it's The Fit Mess. I'm Jeremy. He's Zach.
What's up, everyone?
And this is weird. You know, I did another podcast for a really long time, and for many years I did it in the same part of my house where I'm doing this one now. And it's weird being back here. We're doing it this way again. It's weird that I'm not supposed to go outside. It's weird that nobody's supposed to go outside. And everywhere I look, there are people outside.
Yes, there are.
I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, I know the odds of getting the big CV while you're outside are much lower than if you're all cooped up in the same place. But it is the weirdest thing, the way that America has reacted to being told to stay home. Everyone can't get outside fast enough.
I know. It's crazy. Even myself, after like 2 days, I was just like, I need a DIY project. I need to go to Home Depot. It's an essential store, so I can go get a project.
Right.
And it's like, no, dude, no, that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, I loaded my kids up in the car and went to a nearby trail, like just to go get outside. We're still in isolation, so it's still fine. But there are tons of people there. It's so weird how we can't follow these directions when normally all we do is go to work, go home, stare at our phones, sleep, repeat. Like if we did what we normally do, I think, the vast majority of what we normally do, we would be fine. I got to go to Target. I got to go to the store. I got to go to the baseball game. I got all the things we do aside from work and home. If we just cut those out, but still did everything else, I don't know. I guess we wouldn't be fine, because then we'd be at work with our coworkers. I'm losing my mind. I'm alone in my house. And I can't do the math anymore.
No, it's we're losing it for sure. On the flip side of it, though, it is interesting that, like, I'm finding that all of those trips that I needed to take, all of those things that I did all the time, I'm good for the most part with a weekly grocery trip. Like, I'm okay with it, and I've got enough to do here, and granted, I want to be outside, but I don't need all that other shit.
The things that we considered necessities were really just things we were doing to busy ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the first things we did, I think it was before the official stay-at-home order was in place, but it was kind of this general, hey, it's best if everyone stay home and not go anywhere. The first thing we did is we went to Target. We took the kids and we went to Target, and we were there for like 4 hours.
Just soaking it all in, because you're never going back.
Yeah, I mean, it was like we had to get some stuff at the pharmacy there, and, all the toilet paper was gone, so that was a lost cause. I had to print some photos, like all this stuff that, like, we were on the verge of a pandemic, and
you're printing photos,
and we're at Target, and I knew at the time, I was like, this doesn't seem like what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
Yeah,
but I didn't really know what else to do, and so I don't know. It's been a very strange thing. Over the weekend, I had the strangest experience. I don't know if I've ever had like clinically a full-blown panic attack before. I have plenty of family members have, but I literally woke up in the middle of one. Like, I woke up, my heart was racing, my mind was immediately racing, as though I had been thinking about all of these things at the same time. Like, every part of my system felt out of control, and it was super scary. Like, I was. I live in a very modest, small house in Seattle. I have 2 young daughters, and maybe it's just being here so much, but everything feels smaller because I'm here constantly. And I was immediately projecting into the future, like 10, 15 years, with 4 full-grown adults living in this house. and everything just got more and more claustrophobic, and I just was starting to really freak out. Like I wanted to just go back to bed because it was way earlier than I should have gotten up, and I couldn't. And so I just started thinking, okay, this is clearly energy that needs to be used in another way. I'll do something I haven't done in decades. I'll go for a run. So threw my shoes on, literally just ran out in the cold, went for a run for like a half an hour. And then I got
like
home.
2:00 in the morning?
It was like 6:00 in the morning.
Okay.
And so I did that, got home, and then I just sat in the cold to just try and feel something else for a while. And then to warm up, I jumped in our little hot tub that we have in the backyard and just tried to relax that way. And I was, by like 9 a.m., I was physically and emotionally and mentally done. I just was wiped out. I had nothing left. And that was unlike anything I've ever experienced. It was so strange. And it got me thinking about how we're all in this just crazy survival mode that I don't think any of us have been in. I mean, I think 9/11 is the only other situation I can think of that was anything like this.
Yeah, but that was not to be insensitive, but that was quickly over, right? You know, something happened, and within a week, I mean, it was safe to go out a week later. But man, yeah.
Well, and that was
crazy.
something that you could point to and go, that was caused by that. Where it is this invisible thing, and you have no idea how to avoid it.
Yeah, and then you get super scared because the social distancing is stay 6 feet apart. And I read a study today about how sneezes and the droplets, virus packed droplets, can actually travel like 22 feet.
Right.
It's like,
well, now,
wait, we're all gonna die. Oh my God,
well,
we're all gonna die.
Aside from that, at one point it was, only the elderly and people with other high risk situations. No, now it's everybody. For a while it was, only if it's on a surface that you touch and then you touch your face. No, now it's anybody can get it anywhere, anytime, and we still don't know how. Like it seems to be airborne. It seems to be everywhere. So how do you avoid something that you can't avoid it? It's just out there, and you're either going to get it or you're not, and there's not a lot you can do about it.
Yeah, I've just taken to becoming a hermit, and I'm actually coming to like it a lot.
It is weird being home as much as I have been, but it is good. It's the work-life balance is really nice because I, in the middle of my workday, rather than having small talk with somebody in the office, I can go check in with my kids, check in with my wife. Not go spend $15 on lunch. I can run upstairs and make food here. Like there's so many benefits. The amount of money we're saving by not, leaving the house is pretty remarkable.
I know. Are you guys going to stick with that habit when this is all lifted?
I'm trying really hard to not worry about when this is all lifted, because I don't know what the world's going to look like on the other side of this.
Oh, it's going to be horrific. It really is.
In what way? What do you mean by that?
just watching this, it's a capitalistic society, and just watching how the dominoes are going to fall from an economic standpoint. And it just really makes me angry, like hearing, some of the governors of certain states saying we need to get everyone back to work at some point. Like what we're doing to the economy is worse than what the disease does. Like, no, that's just not the right way to look at this.
Right.
But I totally agree. I mean, this is going to flush the economy down the toilet. Like, I don't think the stock market is done falling. It's gonna be atrocious when this is over.
And I don't know even what that looks like. I don't know if we're going to get to a point where it's such dire straits that I've heard speculation that one way to stimulate the economy is to just wipe out all consumer debt. I mean, I can't imagine a world where someone just goes, "Oh, you don't owe those thousands of dollars anymore. please go out and rack up more debt by buying more stuff. But maybe that's what they'll need to do, because if people are locked in their homes and not allowed to work for months or a year or two, I don't know how anything like what we had before comes back.
Yeah, no, it would take decades to rebuild that house of cards.
Yeah. And what a seemingly fragile house of cards it was.
Yes, it was. There's a Facebook group that I follow called it's called Choose Fi. It's about living, like financial independent and things like that. And there's some people that are, a month ago, you'd be like, oh my gosh, you have 10 vacation rentals and you are just living the dream. Like, they were paying their mortgage on the vacation rental with, money that was coming in on the rental. And now they're about to default on 10 mortgages because they can't pay them because nobody's staying there.
Right.
And they were just, like in that much debt that a few weeks of nobody staying at their houses and they're about to go under.
Yeah.
Like, what was the entire economy just like at that ledge, and just this little tiny thing pushed it over?
Yes. And imagine how many just private people that's this, when I can't remember what the statistics are, but a huge majority, maybe not majority, a huge number of people in this country live paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And when one goes away or two, they're done. They're wiped out. They're out of their homes. Fortunately, there's already lots of talk about protecting people's, they can't be evicted and things like that. So, there are some safeguards that are being at least discussed if they're not already in place. But it's just so alarming how fragile this, superpower has been, that, a virus threatens to topple it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but even going back to your point of protections in place so people can't be evicted, but those people who own the buildings that they can't be evicted from are up to their eyeballs in debt.
Yeah.
And can't go a month without those rent checks coming in, and are going to default on their mortgages and lose the place. Right. And those people are going to go homeless anyway.
Yes.
It's kind of fucked up right now.
It kind of is. And that's what I mean. Is it going to be just Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome after this? What's going to happen? So, thinking about what is my grocery budget going to look like, I don't know what society's going to look like. So I don't know. It's crazy. It's everything's out of control, and that explains why I had one panic attack the other day. Started to have another one today. So if any of this is resonating with you, the listener, we're all in this together. What that means, I don't know, but I do love seeing the stories of people stepping up and helping each other in all the various ways that's happening. And so much of what we do here is, when we can't offer a solution, when there is no superhero to take over the villain or whatever, we do try to just offer that voice that is in it with you, that is in the fight with you. And our guest this week, Healing Jess, she battles chronic illness and has lived in the way that we're all now trying to adapt to for a few years now. And I just think that is a perspective that a lot of us aren't hearing. We keep hearing about those that are vulnerable, those that are high risk. She's in that category, but she's vulnerable and high risk to many other things. And so I just think that her perspective is one that is valuable. We're not sharing her story to make you feel worse about your whining about being, quote, stuck in your house. It's not about making you feel bad, but it's about just sort of sharing that this is something that lots and lots and lots of people in our country, our world, live with all of the time. Is this fear of, I can't participate in the things that everybody else does because of what it could do to my health. And so I just, I'm really glad that she reached out and that we get to share our conversation that we had with her. And we had this conversation, by the way, just a couple of days after all this stuff really started to hit the fan. So I read this the other day. You posted this on Instagram shortly after we had set up this time to chat. And here's what you said. I found this really interesting, and it's just a perspective that I don't know that we're hearing enough of as we deal with this coronavirus COVID-19 crisis. But you wrote,
They are letting you work from home while we've been losing jobs for asking for the same. They tell you not to leave your house unless mandatory. We've been doing this for years. You're going insane from being cooped up. We get gaslighted when we explain our depression. You are wearing masks and gloves in public to protect yourself from one virus. We do this to protect ourselves from all toxins, chemicals, perfumes, mold, viruses, and bacteria. You are having to cancel travel plans. We haven't been able to make travel plans. You are spending hundreds on supplements and medications to keep your immune system strong, and will be spending this for the rest of our lives. In a few weeks or months, most of you will go back to your regular lives. We won't, and will once again be stripped of the accommodations. I just found that so powerful. While I've been, complaining at home on, day 3 of having to homeschool my kids and not really being able to go out and do much, that's a powerful perspective. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of what your life is like now, and if it has changed really because of the coronavirus?
Yeah, so I mean, I always like to start off by saying, I post things like that, but I don't really like to make anybody feel, it's not meant to make people feel bad, for the way that they're reacting, because I know that nobody expected this to hit us, right? Nobody expected to not be able to leave their house and to not be able to go to work. And so people don't really know how to go about it, and they get really nervous and really scared. And that just, it really resonated with me because I didn't expect to get ill when I got ill. My life was going as planned, and all of that hit me, and everything had to change for me. And I remember getting upset about not being able to go to the store without a mask on, or, not being able to go on a trip that my friends were going on. And it was just almost like this whole coronavirus thing brought up a lot of old wounds for me that I had gone through 3 years ago. And so that's kind of where the post came about. Is I was sitting there and I'm thinking, all of these things that all of these people are, in lack for a better word, freaking out about
Yeah.
right now on social media are all things that I haven't been able to do for years now. And it's all stuff that's almost so normal for me. And so it's just a reminder that, I don't know the best way to put it, just a reminder that you need to be more grateful for what you have when you have it, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that, my wife and kids and I have really noticed just driving around town. We had to get out of the house the other day. So we had some things to drop off at some friends, had to get a few supplies. And just driving around, it was the weirdest thing. It was like it was the 80s, because the parks were full of kids running around, skateboarding. People were out walking their dogs. And it's partially, you live in Seattle, you know what it's like here. But when the sun comes out, all of a sudden everybody comes out. But I think everyone was cooped up, and it was just like this time machine where all of a sudden, neighbors were outside, kids were outside playing. It's been really strange to see how quickly we have sort of turned back to each other and hopefully away from screens and whatever it is that we normally distract ourselves with. But I'm really hoping that this ends up being kind of a wake up call for a lot of people.
Definitely. That's my biggest hope too, is that people can kind of just see hey, there's all of these things, especially that people with chronic illness that aren't able to do all the time. Now I'm not able to do those things. Okay, I definitely feel for you a little bit more.
Well, let's talk about your illness. What is the condition that you live with every day that makes you even more susceptible to what's going on right now?
So I was diagnosed with kind of a couple things. I was diagnosed with mold toxicity, mast cell activation syndrome, and multiple chronic tick-borne illness. So when I say multiple chronic tick-borne illness, most people have heard of Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease. Lyme disease is actually one strain of tick-borne illness. So there's actually, I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say up to about 25 different strains of tick-borne illness that you can get. And I have 3 different strains. So that kind of puts it into a little bit more perspective, because people only really hear about Lyme just because it has the more easy name to kind of hold on to. So that's what I was diagnosed with about almost 3 years ago now.
What happened? What was your life like before, and then what changed? Did it all come on at once, or was this a slow progression? How did that happen to you?
So it was all very fast. I was working full time as a project manager in construction, and I was living with my ex-boyfriend at the time. I was kind of at the point in my life where I was like doing all of the things exactly that I had wanted to be doing. I had like my career that was also my passion. I was in a serious relationship, thinking about taking the next step, planning my future. I was doing all of these things, and it was kind of an eerie feeling because I was right where I thought I wanted to be, but I also like still felt like something wasn't right in my life, and I didn't really know what it was at that time. And I, for a few years, kind of had this feeling like, okay, I don't, something doesn't feel right. I feel like I don't feel 100%, but I never really, nothing was ever serious enough to where I ever looked into anything, like I just would get tired every now and then and have, I don't know, I would have panic attacks every now and then, but everybody kind of tells you that that's normal, especially when you're under stress. And so it wasn't until I actually was living in a place with my ex-boyfriend that had black mold. And we didn't know at the time that it did. We lived there for 2.5 years, and what happened was the mold was like slowly breaking down my immune system. And what happened was it finally broke down my immune system enough to where I ended up catching the flu. It was, flu season I think it was end of 2017. Caught the flu. That turned into pneumonia. And then from that point forward, I never really got better. I just felt like crap all the time. And then I started getting like severe allergic reactions to everything. So I could eat something and my mouth would go tingly. My whole body would break out in hives. I would have like the worst stomach ache, or I would burn a candle and I would go almost anaphylactic from just smelling a candle in my house. I would brush my teeth and my lips would swell like I got punched in the face. It was just all, from that point forward, it was everything that I ingested or inhaled sent me into an allergic reaction.
Oh my
so
God.
At that point, there was like, I couldn't ignore it anymore, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was obviously under a lot of stress at that time period in my life too. And so I felt like anybody I sort of reached out to at that moment was very like, oh, you'll be okay. You're just stressed, like things like that. So I never really, I don't know, it kind of stopped me from really pursuing it. But the allergic reactions, they wouldn't stop. So I, went to a doctor, tried to figure out what was wrong. I ended up tying it to mold toxicity, that could be a possibility. Because that can, I guess, spark immense allergic reactions to everything. So I straight up just moved out of the place I was living. I didn't even have it tested yet. I was just convinced that, that has to be this place I'm living in. Moved out of there and moved back in with my parents to a clean home. I still was experiencing a lot of issues. So at that point, I'd seen a few conventional medicine doctors, and they were basically like just throwing their hands up like, we don't know what's wrong with you type of thing. Here, just keep taking all of these prescriptions. And I was like, I'm not doing that. That's not,
in our healthcare system, that's so weird.
Yeah, I know enough about prescriptions to know that they might fix one thing, but they're going to cause a lot of other issues. So I was on, I wanted to go the naturopathic route at that point. I was very, very confused about what to do because the doctors were confused. And so that was when I actually started sharing my own story on social media. And I started out by literally just searching hashtags of mold toxicity and finding other people that were posting about it and like asking them questions and finding out if what I was going through was similar to what they were going through. And that led me to all sorts of things, and eventually led me to, hey, there might be an underlying issue as to why mold toxicity affected me so bad. Because, like I said, I was living with my ex-boyfriend at the time. He was not sick. He was perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so nobody believed me that it was mold toxicity because, well, if it made you sick, why didn't it make him sick? Kind of thing. And so I just kept connecting with people. I was like, okay, there has to be an underlying issue then as to why this affected me so bad and didn't affect him. And that's when I came up with the possibility that maybe I had chronic Lyme disease, because a lot of the people dealing with mold toxicity were dealing with chronic Lyme disease. So I straight up gave a big FU to all my doctors I was seeing and sought out a Lyme literate doctor in Seattle and just basically told her my story and asked her to test me. And long story short, after going through some tests, I ended up being right by my intuition of that being wrong with me. So it was kind of it took 10 months of seeing doctors and trying to figure it out before I actually nailed down what was going on.
So forgive my ignorance here, but how does one get Lyme disease?
So they say it's from a tick bite, but what I've also come to learn is that there's a few bugs that carry it now. It's fleas, spiders, mosquitoes, and ticks.
No shortage of any of those in Seattle.
Yeah, and the other crazy part to it is people are like, well, everybody gets bit by bugs all the time, right? Well, the crazy thing about tick-borne illness is that you can actually have it and it can lay dormant in your body for a very long time, and it can actually lay dormant for your whole life. And it's only if your immune system crashes that it actually takes over. So I don't know when I contracted it, but I know when my immune system crashed. Mm-hmm. And it was that point when I got the flu, that's when it started, and it just took over, and, there was no looking back at that point.
So what I love about your story, what I know of it at this point, is how you're trying to share your story and share what you went through to get to this, to be able to, I assume, take some steps to live somewhat productively and not have this just be a complete life suck. But I guess the way that you're trying to overcome this adversity is the thing that's inspirational to people. So talk about how this has sort of changed your professional life and what you do to not let this win every day.
Oh, yeah. So, like I mentioned, I was reaching out to people on social media who were dealing with the similar things, and I was watching these people share their stories, and I was utilizing them for a lot of, emotional support for myself. And so when I made the decision to start sharing my story, it was more of like almost like a pay it forward type situation, where I was like, all of these people, I wouldn't have been able to figure out what I did if they hadn't chosen to share their stories so publicly. Mm-hmm. So that really was my drive to being like, okay, well, I'm going to share mine because I want to be that person that somebody else can message on Instagram and be like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I see that you deal with the similar things. I really wanted to be that person and pay it forward for all those people that did it for me. And it actually changed. Yeah, I completely changed my career because I was in construction, and I took a month off of work in construction to focus solely on my health because things were really bad. So I took like a sabbatical type thing. And it was during that month of focusing fully on my health that I was like, I just don't think my heart's in construction anymore. I think my heart is with the medical field now. Mm-hmm. And it was also from seeing, how screwed up the conventional medical system is and seeing how bad I had to struggle through that I really wanted to be any part of a change I could be for anyone going through this. So yeah, I left my construction job as soon as I had enough energy to start working part-time again. I started actually doing like mentoring online remotely for people who are struggling through chronic illness. And it's not just Lyme disease, it's anybody struggling through any chronic illness because, they're all very similar in a lot of ways. And then I also now work at a local naturopathic clinic as well. So that's complete career change.
Yeah.
I have a degree in construction, so was not expected, but
Right.
it worked out.
Well, you're working on, constructing human bodies in a certain fashion, right? You're putting them back together.
Exactly. You can look at it that way.
That's awesome. I've got a friend who has chronic Lyme, and he was out of it for a couple of days once, and he came back, and he described it to me as like when he has these bouts, he's like, think of the worst hangover you had when you were in college.
Yes.
And then I was like, okay, got it. And then he's like, okay, times that by 10.
Yep.
And that's kind of what it feels like. How are you doing everything that you're doing with, potentially feeling that crappy? Like, where are you getting your energy from?
So I'm really like the fact that he described it like that. That's the number one way I describe it to people, is that it feels like a hangover, and the worst hangover you've ever had in your life, which you can imagine even having a drink on top of that makes it even 1,000 times worse. But yeah, so I do a lot of things to manage my illness. It does kind of come in phases. So I will go through, a period of a month where I feel really, 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 really bad. And then maybe the next month it might not be as bad, or even day to day and week to week. I really don't know. But I think the best way I manage it now is I am a big advocate for B12 injections. They might not work the same for everybody because everything works differently on everybody, but that is the number one thing I use to keep my energy levels up. If I'm not taking those, then I can barely get out of bed. So I take those twice a week, and that gives me enough energy to at least, make it through most of my day. I only work about 5 hours a day, which is, part-time, and that's about all I can handle. Not just because of energy, but because of brain. This illness creates a lot of neurological issues, and so it makes it really hard to concentrate for a long time. But I also do IV infusions a lot. I don't know if you've heard of a Myers cocktail IV.
I have. Yep.
Yeah, so that's a really good one to use when you're going through any chronic illness, actually. I know a lot of people with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia use that as well to kind of control pain and everything like that. The biggest, another two big game changers for me were just, number one, my diet. Before I got sick, I knew nothing about eating healthy. I wouldn't say I ate terrible, but I definitely didn't realize how much your diet affects your ability, your body's ability. So if I eat a crappy food now, then it can put me out for days. Wow. And it's kind of wild. And then the other thing would be the infrared sauna. The infrared sauna has helped me detox all of the mold out of my body. So now that the molds can mainly, I think, I haven't retested, but I'd say it's probably mostly out of my body now because of using the infrared sauna 3 times a week to detox everything. And if I can stay consistent with all of those things, then I do pretty good. When I was at my sickest, I did do oral antibiotics. I pulsed them like crazy because that's what my Lyme doctor had me do. I couldn't tell you if that's the way to go or not. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of conflicting data out there. And I take 1 million herbal supplements every day. So I got that going for me too.
Man, it's, you are the kind of people that we're hearing blanketed into this group of people with underlying conditions as we all try to adjust to whatever this hopefully temporary new normal is, but who knows? This could go on for months or longer. Who knows? So to sort of bring this back to what is on the forefront of everyone's mind right now, the people that you were addressing in that initial post that caught my eye, what advice, what takeaways do you have for people that are just trying to adapt now to something that you've now been dealing with for years? How are you able to sort of stay sane in a world that's not necessarily very friendly, because there's some virus out there that wants to take us all out.
So this is probably going to sound pretty lame to most people because I know I didn't understand this concept at all when I first got sick. But honestly, the best thing to learn is patience. I had zero patience when I first got sick. I was, every day hoping the next day I was going to wake up and be fine and things were going to be over and I was, just going to be able to bounce right back. And that was the biggest thing that I had to learn is just be patient. There's only so much you can control. Do whatever you can to keep your mind at peace and to keep, for lack of a better word, your shit together. I don't know if I can swear on here.
Please.
Yep.
But that's what I suggest to everybody. I mean, people are only on, most people are only on like day 3 of, this whole thing, and they're already going a little bit insane. But you not being patient, I mean, you have no control over when this is going to end. You just got to follow the rules. You got to play by the rules. Just ride it out. That's honestly my best advice to people.
The other thing with this, and maybe the answer is the same, I don't know. The thing that I'm noticing with myself, my own stress level with this, I'm not worried about getting sick. My wife is somewhat immunocompromised, so I'm moderately concerned about her, and she works in a healthcare environment, so that's scary on its own. I've got young kids, as we've all seen by now. Young kids don't seem to be affected by this, although they can obviously be carriers. And I have elderly parents that are around us a lot. So the illness itself is not scary to me. I feel like if any of us gets it, we're going to be fine. We're relatively healthy people that can pull through. But the fear and the uncertainty feels to me a lot like 9/11 did. I don't know where you come down politically, but when President Trump won the election, those are the two big ones in my life that I remember being really scared and feeling like I can't stop consuming information to be as prepared for what's happening as possible. And that is keeping me up at night so that I'm losing sleep, which is creating stress, and all these things make you more vulnerable to get this sort of thing. So,
yes.
So the answer may be patience, but what do you say to somebody who is dealing with sort of the fear of the unknown and where we're going to stay calm during this?
I mean, I guess I do really agree with you on the eerie feeling that this is bringing, being a lot similar to those past 2 events, for sure, because I felt the same way. But I do think that there is a limit that you should be spending on watching the news and flooding yourself with all of this information. I don't think that's going to help if you're constantly sitting in front of the TV and in front of the news trying to stay as up to date as you possibly can, because that is only going to stress you out even more. Similar to me, I go to work. This is all I hear about is this coronavirus situation. That's all I'm dealing with. So when I get home, I just try to isolate myself a little bit and stay away from it. I mean, we all have social media. We're all going to hear, the changes that are being made. I don't feel like it's as important to make sure that you're the first one that hears it.
Exactly. No, that's great
Well
advice.
said.
Yes.
I really hope that this whole situation, as terrible as it is and has terrible, as badly as I would never wish any of this upon anybody, I do also hope that it is a wake-up call to everybody, that we just need to spread more love and more compassion and have more empathy for everybody, because you don't know what somebody's going through until you go through it. And I think we're all seeing a lot of that situation right now.
All right. Our thanks again to Healing Jess. You can find a link to her. Primarily her Instagram account seems to be the thing that she wants to share. So there's a link to that on our website, thefitmess.com. I think a challenge at this point is adding insult to injury, because we're all just trying to get by. We're trying to survive every day. So I'm not gonna bother to challenge you to eat better, to work out more, to any of the things, because right now just not having a panic attack is a win. So, so what I would like to do, though, I would love if anyone is listening to this and wants to share what they're going through. Did you wake up to a panic attack the other day? What is this doing to your life? I would love to hear from people that are somehow having their lives altered by this, are scared, are celebrating, whatever your situation might be. I would love to hear it. And you can reach us. Just go to thefitmess.com. There's all kinds of contact information. Reach out on social media. Whatever works for you, we'd be happy to hear from you.
So instead of a challenge, what is one thing that society at large is doing now that you hope sticks around after this whole thing goes away?
I think it's multi-layered, to be lame in my answer. And it's valuing life over money. It's sort of the umbrella that it all falls under. But the fact that so many businesses where employees have been asking for more remote work opportunities to be with their families, and the answer was, oh, corporate policy can't do that. Well, you can. We're proving it can be done. When we waste how many hundreds of hours in traffic every year because, driver's going to drive. What you going to do? Can't find a solution. Well, we found one. Let people work from home. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you're not wasting time in a car for hours for no reason. There's so many things where the answer was no because policy, no because it's hard, no because that's not. I want the answer to start being yes. And maybe you don't know how yes, but start with yes and try to find a way to make it work. And I think that as more of us are able to spend more time with our families and be at home and create this better work-life balance, I think that is going to be more possible. That is the one thing from this that I hope on the other side, I hope that's how society is different, is that we start with yes and then fill in the blanks instead of just no.
Wow. That was pretty deep.
Was it? I just made it up. I don't know.
No,
I'm kind of a dummy. I don't know.
I asked the question because I had an answer in mind, and I don't know if I want to follow it up now.
Oh, was it more Snickers for everyone?
No, it was just the fact that I could probably get away with never shaking another human being's hand again for the rest of my life. And
That's a good one too.
You went pretty deep on that.
I like yours too, though. That's a good one. I like that. Oh God.
So there is no challenge. There's nothing going on there. But we've all got lots of extra time now. We're all stuck at home, and I'm going to do a shameless plug. And if there is anything that you want to implement in your life, like say meditation or working out or eating better or something along those lines, we have a whole bunch of episodes that cover all of those things.
Well played.
Yes. So go ahead, go back, take a listen to some of our older episodes if you want to learn some new skills and focus on yourself during this time. There's
like 30 of them. There's tons of content that you can just gobble up.
Have we babbled for that long?
Yeah, we've got like 30 episodes.
Damn.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
So there we go. That's I think that's where we'll wrap this one up. It's been weird talking to you from my basement.
I talk to you from my basement all the time, so it's no different for me.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that there's some sense of normal in this for somebody then. With that, we're going to go. This has been The Fit Mess. You can find out more at thefitmess.com. All those episodes, subscribe on whatever device you like. They got the new Google Podcast app. There's the Apple Podcast, whatever you use. There's a way to get it, and we hope you'll subscribe and that you'll listen. And ratings and reviews aren't frowned upon either. So thank you for listening. Thanks for supporting the show, and thanks for sharing this in any way you possibly can. We will be back in a couple of weeks at thefitmess.com.
See you, everyone.
We know this podcast is amazing and does not seem to lack anything, but we do need a legal disclaimer. Jeremy and Zach are not doctors. They do not play them on the internet, and even if they did play them on the internet, they would be really bad at it. Please consult your physician prior to implementing any changes that you heard on this podcast. The listener assumes that Jeremy and Zach do not know what they are talking about and that you will do your own research on the topics talked about on this podcast.